battles unfold on the table. Let's expanse miniature warriors in a strategic dance. 15 millimeters of intricate design, a world of conflict in a scaled down line. Terrain crafted with precision and care. Armies maneuver under watchful glare. Dice roll to decide.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Derek, and I am continuing on with our Wargaming and miniature video where I'm doing a Meg terrain update. But in the terrain update, I'm updating you on the status of my terrain project for all my Meg projects, but also going over the pre-battle system. And I'm doing this for two reasons. The primary reason is to show everybody what the pre-battle system does, and to update you on where my terrain is sitting. But secondarily, which might actually be primarily, but secondarily, I am going to evaluate the terrain that I have available for Meg, and then decide if I need to add to it or make modifications to it, which I can already tell you I need to do both. But we're going to go over that real quick. All right, there is a piece of terrain that I forgot to show off, and that was the lake that I did. I did a pond, a lake, or whatever you would like to call it, and I'm going to have to say that the liquid paste or putty or whatever I am using for the water is dry to the touch. But if you let it sit in a box, in a tub, on a shelf, or whatever, if something is sitting on it, then it will, it's kind of like glass. Glass is a liquid, and this never truly 100% dries. So as you can see, I don't know if you can see that. As you can see, there is a little bit of imperfection on there, and I might be able to go in and scrape most of that off. It's entirely possible. What that was I had some felt laying on this, and when I went to pull it out of the tub and I went to pull the felt off, the felt actually stuck to the river. Now, or the pond or the water. Now, what I am planning on doing is I could paint that and maybe put a little grass on it or flock it and make it like a little island in the pond. I think that would probably be the best thing to do. Another thing I thought I could do is paint it blue like the pond, and then put another layer of water on top of it. I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to make like a little island on the inside of my lake. Okay, so let's just get this out of the way. Okay, so if you remember, we were talking about the deep water option, secure flank. And this is the water feature that I had made a long time ago. It is, it was made on a rubber that I could, I put like a beach down, I put the grass on this side, and then on this side I put the water, right? And so in Meg, if you have a secure flank with deep water, it's either a river, a coastline, or something like that. And what you do is you lay it up against the edge of the table, which, if you remember, this black mat here is the end of my table. The cardboard is also the end of the table going in that direction. This should be a 3 by 4 foot section for a Magna game. And that's like the only time you ever use inches in this entire game, is measuring the table size. Okay, so I lay my terrain piece on here, and it can be no more than 6 base widths for Maximus. But remember, Magna is 2/3 that. So the most it could be is 4 base widths, which it is. Now, if you only count the water, it's only like a 1.5 base width. If you count the beach, then it's about 2.5 base widths. And then if you count the full amount of this rubber, it is approximately under 4. It's about 3 3/4 base widths. Okay, right there it's about 4 base widths, which is perfect. So this is something you and your opponent will have to decide, if there's a referee, he'll have to decide how you're going to treat this. Are troops going to be able to move all the way up to the water? Are they only going to move up to the beach? Or can they only move up to the terrain piece itself? Right? And that it could go either way. Right? It can go any way you wish. My intent was that the water would be the actual blocking terrain. Everything else would just be normal. Now I've got a part of the update that I'm talking about. I took this rubber out about 3 days ago, and I laid it out on the table face down with weight on it to get it to lay flat, because I had stored it rolled up. I unrolled it, laid it flat, put some weight on it, and even after 3 days, you can see I don't know if you can see that. You can see it starting to curl up, right? And then on the ends, I should say the sides, and this is the side that's important, it's curling up. That's not good. That is unacceptable because I'm a stickler for that kind of stuff. I want my terrain to be perfect. If I was making terrain boards and I made the board along the outer edge, if I made the board on the edge coastline, and it would lay perfectly flat on the board, right? If I made it out of MDF, it's going to lay perfectly flat. But then it's not going to. It would be bulky and it would be multiple pieces, unless I had a big long piece of MDF, which I do, but I don't want to lug around a big long coastline, and I don't want to have a big long coastline on my shelf or whatever. So what I think I'm going to do, and this is going to be I'm going to keep this as a backup, as my potential. Now, if I rolled it the other way, instead of rolling it up this way, if I rolled it up this way, it would probably lay flat on the table a lot better. But I don't know if the ends are still going to come up. I don't know. The reason why I originally rolled it up this way was to protect the workmanship. But if I roll it up this way, all I got to do is put a little wax paper or something like that on there, and it should be perfectly fine. I'm going to try it both ways, but in the meantime, I'm going to make a second coastline. I've decided I'm going to make a second coastline, But the second one is going to be made out of my stiff felt. I have these strips of stiff felt that are like, they're probably 3 foot long, to be honest. And then I just got to cut it out, putty it, and put some water on there. So I'm gonna toy around with that, and I'll probably let you see that on camera at some point. But I'm just gonna let you know this rubber, it's like there's a word for it. Yeah, I can't remember it's not neoprene, but I can't remember the type of rubber this is. But it's only like 2 millimeters thick. It's perfect for like, it's a floor mat actually. And I still have quite a bit of it, but I'm not going to use it for making coastlines. Not something this narrow anyway. Okay, so if you remember, we did the army maneuvering around the map, and we did the left and right, all the adjustments and stuff like that, and we wound up, if I remember right, we wound up there, which is the deep water. But if hypothetically I'm trying to get the most out of the most pieces of terrain on the table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to very dense, very dense. We're going to go for the maximum. And I'm going to go with mountains or forest. Now, I probably could go rocky ground or woods. Because I know I've got enough mountains and forests. We're going to go rocky grounds or woods. Okay, now let me get this out of the way. All right, so as you can see, I rolled it up this time with the terrain on the outside, and I ensured that I put wax paper so that none of the terrain would stick, specifically the water feature. Okay, so let's just assume that it's rocky ground or woods, very dense in the forest, and we're going to lay out terrain on the table, and I'm going to explain how the process is done. Okay, the first thing that happens is the secure flanks. The defender chooses a compulsory sized option, rocky ground or woods, and we're just going to say woods, and he has to put it in the compulsory into the secure flank area. And something I wanted to point out, that on your battlefield you have a 10 base width flank on both sides. But because this is Magna, I say this every time kind of just to re-emphasize it, but because it's Magna, it becomes 7. If you're using the full 6-foot table, then it would be a 10. But because Magna only uses a 4-foot table, it becomes 7. Remember, 2/3 rounded up. And that's this stick right here. And I've kind of put this paper right there just to kind of give me that 7 base width line. Now remember, this is it could be either woods or it can be woods or forest. It's just basically a blank template that you put trees on, and that's what the defender will choose. He does not choose rocky ground. Okay. Now, the upender, which is the Romans, now chooses either rocky ground or woods as well. And it has to be the compulsory size. Now, both of these players have to put it on their side of the table, which in this case, I'm going to use dice to kind of help me identify the different zones of the table. Okay, so that's the center line right there. Now, the defender can put it all the way up to the center line if he wants. And the attacker decides to pull it back as far as possible. It's just based on whatever your whim is. Okay, now I would put trees on this to make these woods or rocky ground. Okay, so now this piece is pretty much done. We don't need this on the table or anything right now, because we know it's very dense forest. And on very dense forest, we look here where it says very dense. We need 2 rough or open areas and 2 difficult. And these are compulsory, which means these are the big pieces. Okay, I'm going to put that on there. I'm getting these out of the way so that they don't interfere with the terrain laying process. Now, the compulsory items cannot be moved or removed. I'm sorry, not the compulsory. The secure flank items cannot be moved or removed. Another thing, when you put terrain down, anytime you put terrain down on the table, okay, it cannot be within 2 base widths of another piece of terrain. Okay, so if I wanted to, I would not be able to put it all the way up to there, because it has to be at least 2 base widths away from any other piece of terrain. Okay, so the defender chooses a compulsory item and then the invader until all are chosen. So we need 2 rough and 2 difficult. So the Germans, because he's the defender, looks on the left side of this form and he will see forest on here. He's looking for the F or foxtrot. Now this says any, so this is good. And then there's F, 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 F. Yeah. And then down here, F and F. Okay, but remember, we're looking for rough or difficult, which is yellow. Okay. But it's not just rough. It can also be an open area. And open is a specific type of terrain. It's just a zone that it is terrain, but it doesn't do anything but block placement. Because if I put an open terrain here, then my opponent cannot put terrain in that area or within 2 base widths of it. So open area does kind of So in the very dense, it has to be too rough and too difficult. Oh, right, I'm sorry. Rough or open and too difficult. Okay. And rough is yellow and difficult is red. And we're talking about compulsory. So hypothetically, the German player can take woods compulsory. Okay, so I've got this piece of MDF that has not been worked with. And I'm going to say this guy is going to place, the table has 2 flank sectors. Placement is a D6, and it's always taken from your own perspective. So the German looking on the table this way. So for the Germans, this would be the left side. For the Romans, this is the left side. Okay, if that makes any sense. Okay, so roll a D6, and it'll tell you what section it has to be placed in. So he rolls a die, he rolls a 5, and it says 5 or 6 is the right flank. Okay, well, this cannot be placed in the right flank. It would be, it would fail the place. It would not, so, and that's another thing. Like it had to be 2 base widths away from any piece of terrain, except for a deep water flank. It's allowed to actually touch that. Yeah, so officially, if it was to be needed to be placed into this area, it can't be placed, so it's actually discarded. It's a failed place. It doesn't get bumped or anything like that. It just fails to place. But because I want to try to maximize the terrain, I'm going to say I rolled something different. I'm going to say I rolled a center, which would be 3 or 4. If I rolled a 3 or 4, it would be in the center. If you roll an odd number, it has to touch the table edge. So if I rolled a 3, it has to be all the way back. If I rolled a 4, I could choose somewhere in the center to place it. But in this case, I'm going to place it all the way back. I'm going to place it 2 base widths away from another piece of terrain. All right, this is only one piece of terrain, right? Now, it would have naturally not been placed, but again, I'm trying to maximize potentials here. After you try to place it down, the opposing player rolls a die, and he's trying to affect the placement. Okay, if I roll a 6, it says remove the item. Okay, if you roll a 4 or better, I get to move this up to 6 base width. If I roll a 5, then I can pivot it. Okay, so if you roll, hypothetically, let's say I roll a 5, I can move it. Yeah, this is all optional. So if I roll a 4 or better, I can move it up to 6 inches. I'm sorry, 6 base widths, which in Magna would be 4 base widths. And then if I roll a 5 or better, I can pivot it and change how it lays out on the table. And if you roll a 6 or better, you can remove it. Okay, so let's just say I roll a 1, 2, or a 3 and didn't get to move. Right? Because I'm trying to see potentially how many pieces I could get on the table. Yeah, and let's say this was pushed all the way back as well, because I want to see if I can get something in here. All right, now the attacker gets to choose, and I'm going to choose open ground. Of course, because I'm the Romans, I want to choose open ground. It's supposed to be compulsory. I'm going to use a hill to represent open ground. And we're going to put it right there. No, I'm not. I'm going to roll a die. 5 or 6 would be my right flank. Because it's odd, it has to touch the table edge. I'm just going to put it in the far corner. But either way, that is a clear piece of terrain. My opponent would roll a die, and he rolled a 1, so he doesn't get to move it. Okay, now we're on our second. We've already used rough and open, so the only thing left is too difficult. That means we're stuck with red. Forest is difficult. Let's see where it lands. 6 on his flank would be over there. Now remember, after the compulsory items, which have to be placed on your half of the table, after that, they don't have to be on your side of the table. They can be anywhere, right? Okay. So, as a Roman, I would get to roll, and I roll a 1, which means I don't get to affect it, right? 4 is move, 5 is pivot, and 6 is remove. And those all stack. So if you get a pivot, you can move and pivot. Okay, finally, the Roman has to choose a difficult terrain. And again, I'm trying to maximize the forests or the woods, and forest is difficult, and I don't have a piece big enough for that. So that tells me that I need to create compulsory woods. Where does he place it? Places it on the left side. There's no place that I can put it. So we're going to hypothetically say that he has to put it in the center. He decides to put it all the way in the back. That's basically, because remember, I'm just trying to maximize the number that I'm going to need. All right, and then now that the compulsory items are placed, there should be 4 of them. Yeah, 2 woods, 3 woods, and a clear area. Because I know the Romans wouldn't opt for a woods. We go with now each player gets up to 3 any. So what that means is any color as long as it's under the forest area. And the Romans most likely are going to pick open area every time. Yeah, they're going to choose possibly open area. But now we're going with optional, which are the smaller pieces of terrain. So let's see. Starting with the defender, he chooses any terrain from the forest. I'm sorry, from the, forest terrain. And we're going to choose a compulsory woods. Not a compulsory, an optional woods. What blank does he have to put it in? 2. He has to put it in this first blank. He's going to put it as far, as close to this open area as he's allowed, which is 2 base widths. The Roman is going to roll to see if he can modify it. He cannot. And then it comes back to the Roman, where he's going to put out a piece of clear terrain. It's going to be a small piece. So I'm just going to use a hill again to see where he puts it. He has to put it in the center. We have compulsory woods right here. I'm going to assume, or I'm going to try to put it there. The Germans roll a 6. They opt to remove it. Now, why would they do that? Because now that it doesn't exist, they can put another patch of woods there. Okay, they pull out woods. I can't affect it. Oh, I'm sorry, where its place is in the middle. I could remove it, but again, we're trying to maximize the number of woods that are needed. That is 2 optionals for the defender and 1 optional for the attacker that's already been removed. So he's going to again try to place a open area, and he has to put it on the right side. So in this case, okay, he has to put it over on the side, and because he's trying to interfere as much as possible with the Germans, he puts it as far to the inside as possible. And the Germans roll, and okay, they can move it up to 6 and pivot it. Well, guess what? They're going to push it up into the corner. They're going to move it out of the way. So this is clear, that's clear, and everything else is on the table. The Germans decide they want to put another patch of woods on the table. And they roll a 1, which means it has to be in this zone, but there's nowhere to put it in this zone. But let's just say that they rolled the center zone. They could opt to mess with the Romans, and they're going to put it in the back here, more than 2 base widths away from this open area and more than 2 base widths away from this woods. They're going to put it right there. Okay, so the Romans roll to see if they can affect it. They cannot. And even if they could, I would say they cannot. Okay, so when it comes back to the Romans, he just passes because he doesn't need any more open terrain or anything like that. And that's the end. We got woods, 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 open area, deleted open area, and then paths. Okay, so this is the way the terrain would be on the table. This would come up because it's open area. Doesn't need to be displayed on the table. This is open area, so this can be removed. And then all these other pieces would be woods. And this would be woods as well. So I need to make a compulsory woods. These are old pieces that I've had in the past, and they work perfectly fine. There's no problem with that. This was a woods as well. So instead of making this wood, I'm going to leave that. I'm going to make a couple of compulsory woods out of my felt. I don't know if I've got felt that wide. What is maximum optional wood size? Maximum should be 4 to 8. Right, which is 3 to 6. Yeah, 3 to 6. Okay, I think these are too big for optional. Yeah, that's almost 7. That's like compulsory. That's compulsory. Okay, I could use these as compulsories. I need to make, okay, I'm just going to, I could use those as compulsories. Okay, these are the other pieces that I have. Okay, that works as an optional. Okay, these all work as good optionals. And these work as compulsories. I don't think I need to make any. I think I need to write maybe on the bottom that it's compulsory or optional. And you notice how I made them kind of an odd shape. That's the way I used to do it with Field of Glory. Yeah, so I don't think I need these 2 compulsories. Not if I use those 2 as compulsories. I might need 1 compulsory. That's only an extreme. That would be an extreme. I think we're okay. Okay, let's take a look at some of the other terrain. Open areas, don't need to model that. Hills, I have both compulsory and optional hills. Rocky ground, I don't really have any rocky ground. Brush, I have 1 piece for brush. Plowed fields, tall crops, village, boundaried fields, orchards, vineyards, town, woods. I'm not sure how to do a gully. It says description and depiction. Significant depression in the ground with easy slopes and a flat and even bottom. Okay, so it's kind of like a crater. I wonder if I can make a gully. Like a lake, but not with water. All visible at 2 base widths from outside. Those inside can see and shoot out. Troops fighting in outer 1 base width and nearer edge of gully are uphill. Troops fighting in, it says in outer 1 base width. Okay, so I guess they're talking about the outer edge of the thing. If you're within 1 base width, you're fighting uphill. Troops fighting in outer 1 base width. Oh, they're given uphill. They're saying they're uphill. Okay, so there's like a mound in here. Once you get within a base width of the edge, you're up. Okay, so what I'll do is this is the way I'm envisioning making a gully. I'm gonna get a terrain board like this, and I'm gonna put maybe foam around the outer edge, giving it a significantly raised area like a hill, and then just gently sloping the whole thing and then puttying the whole thing. So it'll be like a crater. It'll be a lot like a crater. They just call it a gully. Okay, mountains, forest, swamp, sandy. Okay, sandy ground, wadi, and sand dunes. I'm holding off on doing those. Really, that's the only thing I need to make. It's like a gully, because I have like 1 or 2 of each of the other things. How often am I going to need them? Not very often. Okay, so that's how you lay out the terrain. But that's not the end of it. I wanted to go over we're still in the pre-battle system. I wanted to go over the bottom part of it, which is scouting. After all the terrain is down, you check for out scouting. So you get a scouting allotment of cards, and it's usually like my Romans, I think, have 3. I'm just going to assume it's 3 for both armies. The cards that you have remaining in your hand stay in your hand from the initial 5-day battle or maneuvering, and then you get to add your scouting cards. Okay, and I'm going to give each one 3. Cards are worth a percentage and you only look at your 5 best cards. Okay, so remember, it goes red, yellow, green. Those are the only ones that count. If it's white or black, it doesn't even count. You don't even need to add. They count as 0. Okay, so I got yellows and greens. So yellows count as 20% and green count as 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 60% is what we're looking at here. I'm just going to put a 6 on there. Okay. Now let's look at oh my gosh, the black cards are worth jack diddly. I only have 4 cards, so it's your best 5. And red is 40%, and green again is 10%. So the total is 50%. Okay, so the Romans out-scouted the Germans by 10%. Okay, So that's how you determine if you've out-scouted them. Now, once you've out-scouted your opponent, this is when you decide. This is how you determine which troops are placed on the table first, and how many of them are placed. So the out-scouted army begins and places his camp, then his units, until the percent by which he was outscored is on table. Now, luckily, when you print out your army list, there is a percentage at the bottom that goes from 10 to 90%. And then it tells you how many units that means that you have to deploy first. Okay, when placing your camp, you have you find the center line of the table. It has to be placed within 6 base widths of, or 4 in the case of a Magna game, of the center line. Or if you have a secure flank, you can place it all the way up to the secure flank. So the secure flank or 4 base widths of the center line. All your troops must be placed within 6 base widths of the table edge, but again, in Magna, that's reduced to 4. All measurements on the table by Magna is 2/3. Until the game starts, then it just goes as normal. So the out-scouted army begins placing his camp, then his units, and then it talks about, I don't really need to go into all the placement rules and all that, but that's not really what I wanted to do. I just wanted to show how out-scouting works and how that affects how many troops you have to place on the table. And that is the pre-battle system, as well as my terrain update. It looks like I need to make a gully. I also need to, that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, that's right. I need to make the river along the outer edge. I want to make it out of felt. And another thing I might do is I might make some more wood pieces that are not so square, because I don't know, anything that's supposed to be natural, I don't like perfectly square. Also, I don't want all my terrain pieces to be at the maximum amount, and that's what these are. These are all 7 by 7. A compulsory unit, or I'm sorry, compulsory terrain piece, it only has to be at least 4 base widths. So as long as it's bigger than 4, so if I made it a good size, but more than 4, and more of a natural size, I think I'll do that. I think I'll make a couple of woods that way, and maybe a gully. All right, guys. Well, thanks for coming out and checking out this pre-battle system and my terrain update. And this is part 2. If you missed part 1, go back and check part 1. And I appreciate it. And you guys, be sure to check out my eBay store, where you can pick up miniatures. I just got a big selection of Napoleonics in today. And if you need work done for you, I do commission work. You can always check that out on my description. There is a link to my Google Doc on how much I charge to do that. All right, and I will see you in the next video.